Hey, hello everyone, welcome to Law Friends. Today we have with us Aparajita K, who has secured All India Rank 10 in NLSAT 2025 and also All India Rank 16 in NLU and NIIT. So today we'll be learning more and we'll be delving deep into preparation strategies. We'll start with introduction. So Aparajita, tell me about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Aparajita and this was my first attempt in both NLSAT and NLU's exam. I did my graduation from IIT Madras. I did the 5-year integrated Masters in Development Studies, post which I did the LAMP Fellowship. I worked as the Legislative Assistant to Member of Parliament. And then I started UPSC preparation. I gave a few attempts. 2024, I cleared prelims. I gave the mains and I missed the cutoff by around 10 marks. The results came in December last year. And I think in January, I came to know about NLSAT. That's when I was looking for options and I was thinking, okay, I need to pivot my career. And law has already been I was aware of the program and all. I just delved deeper into it, and then the exam was going to happen in April 27. So in mid I started preparing. It took me about 2 months, like less than 2 months actually. And thankfully I got in.
That's perfect. Like before we actually jump into your preparation strategies, I just want to know 3 things. One is, you said you're from IIT Madras Development Studies, and you shifted your career to law. I mean, I know you were in the middle. You had the fellowship, LAMP fellowship, and later you shifted your career. Like, what prompted you to go towards law?
When I was doing LAMP fellowship, I had first-hand experience in what goes behind the legislations, lawmaking, and the whole thing, and the implications of it, drafting laws and acts and bills, and the debates and discussions that happens around it, and all of that. And even in IIT, we did a lot of legal pluralism and everything. So I was always inclined towards studying law. It's just that now I got the time and everything was set in motion, and that's why I chose to give NLSAT.
So you told me that you got to know about NLSAT in January 2025.
Yeah.
So with just 3 months of preparation, like how did you do it, and how did you come to know about NLSAT to begin with?
So NLSU, I checked the website to see whether I'm eligible for the program, and a friend of mine told me about the 3-year LLB program, which started quite recently, and thankfully the exam was also in the near future that time. So I applied immediately and I started my preparation.
When you started your preparation, you said you started your preparation in February, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, mid of February.
Mid-February. And you just had two and a half months to prepare for the exam. So what did you actually do? Like how did you begin with? Where did you begin with?
So the first thing I did was to check the previous year question papers to see the pattern, what kind of questions are coming and everything.
Okay.
So then, I saw there's part A, part B, and then in part A MCQs, I checked what all the type of questions that are coming. So we have comprehension paragraphs, and based on that, there'll be 8 to 10 questions under each paragraph. And then similarly, we have case studies and an essay in part B. So then I started my preparation for part A. What I did is studied the current affairs monthly compilations, which is available in the market.
Okay.
But since I already prepared for UPSC prelims and mains, I was reading a lot of current affairs that time.
So for CA, you did a monthly compilation, right? Of which institute? Like UPSC or UPSC CA compendiums, or
UPSC ones. UPSC ones.
Perfect.
But then there are some changes. Differences between the UPSC current affairs and NLSAT. Because you don't need that level of preparation, right? And also there are some things like, for instance, Oscars, the Cannes, the Olympics, what are the medals, certain important appointments and all. These are questions relevant to NLSAT.
True.
And not much to UPSC.
That's
so
really...
those, I made a separate document, Googled all these extra information which you won't find in the UPSC current affairs, and then I just studied those. And yeah, we did have questions like, for instance, there was a question on International Olympic Committee's head, who is the current one.
So how did you like cover this one-liner current affairs and the persons in use and these kind of current affairs, right, that you're talking about?
Yeah. So I saw the previous year questions, and I did some analysis, and then I figured out what are the major areas in which questions are coming.
Okay.
So past, I think around three years, I checked the question paper, and then I made a list like books and authors, recent appointments, movies, and like the some debuts and directors in Cannes, and who won the Oscar, all those things. So I made a list of it, and then I Googled like what are the recent current affairs related to these topics, right? In sports, what is happening? What are the recent games that held? Like we had Paris Olympics in 2024, so I was sure that there'll be some question related to Olympics. So we had, I think, 2 questions related to Olympics. So I prepared around those topics. And then in the monthly compilations, I just studied the things which will be relevant for NLSAT, not everything. Whatever I thought is relevant. For instance, if there is any COP29 was happening in Baku, so that one. So like around what are the organizations, international organizations, anything related to that. So those kind of current affairs I studied.
Okay, so for current affairs, basically you initially went through the CA compendium of UPSC, and later you went through the previous year question papers of NLSAT, and later you jotted down the important topics of it, and later you made one-liner current affairs in your own
Actually, first I started with the previous year questions only, because only then I was able to sift through the monthly compilations of UPSC, because those compilations are very huge. It's like for polity itself, you will have like 100 pages booklet, so it will be like very big. You don't need to study everything in that for NLSAT. So whatever I thought will be relevant, I just studied that.
Perfect. And I have a doubt, because you're in UPSC preparation. Many people who write NLSAT are from are aspirants, UPSC aspirants. So I want to know if CSAT passages, comprehension passages, are useful for NLSAT part.
Yeah, actually, for CSAT, you will start developing how to the speed, how to read the passage quickly and analyze the lines and then figure out the answer. And usually in CSAT, the options will be very confusing. All the options will be right, and you need to quickly figure out what is the right answer, right? So we'll start developing that skill, which was very useful for NLSAT, because all the questions are passage based in NLSAT Part A. Even the current affairs one are like sandwiched inside those.
Exactly. In fact, I have observed a trend. Like I have been telling many people as well. The NLSAT CA questions that come in each passage, right? They're somehow related to the passage itself. They're not giving it out of context. For example, if there's a passage on global warming, there'll be a question on some island which has due to increase in water level, the island has gone down.
So. And also, the way I structured the time management is that I had the 60-50-40 rule. Okay.
What's the 60-50-40 rule?
I mean, it's something which I personally followed. So I said that, okay, within the first 60 minutes, I have to finish Part A.
Okay.
It's actually quite a tight time. 60 minutes won't be that enough. You will probably take 10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes more, but this is something which I practiced. solving the mocks. Within 60 minutes, I have to finish part A. And then the next 50 minutes, I'm going to give for the case studies, which is like 5 case studies, 10 minutes each.
Part B.
I'm going to finish the case studies in 50 minutes. So I'll have 40 minutes for essay. And in case there is some kind of spillover from part A or B, 40 minutes I'm going to use to finish all that and then finish the essay also. So that's how I prepared.
You had 40 minutes for essay.
No, that's how I structured.
Yeah.
In reality, that was a little different because I had less than 30 minutes for essay. But then because I managed it like this, in my mind, I knew that, okay, I'm going to give enough space. The last 40 minutes I'm going to give for essay as well as pending things from other sections. So like whatever is remaining.
I want to know this. As you have gone through the previous year questions, like earlier the NLSAT was of the part B passages were of 10 marks, but now it's of 12 marks. So if you are assigning 50 minutes for
no, they also reduced the number of questions.
Exactly, 5 questions.
Earlier it was 6, now it is 5. So I checked the sample papers which NLSU gave, 2 sample papers they gave, and I checked the sample papers, and then that's how I structured. Okay, I'm going to do 60 minutes part A and then remaining for part B. And I knew that 60 minutes for part A is very less actually. Like you will definitely exceed that time limit.
Exactly.
So that's like if I exceed, then I can manage it in the last 40 minutes. No, I can write the essay and I can finish whatever is remaining. So that way, my goal was, from the beginning, my goal was I need to complete the paper. No matter what, I have to complete the paper.
Perfect.
I cannot afford to leave any question or any case study or even the essay part. So that was my first, no compromise on that. So that's how I started the mock test and all. I prepared everything.
So in your like when you're practicing mock test, so you had the structure of 50 minutes for part B, the passages, 5 passages. Like though we know that like the passages are very long, right? Just to read the passage is gonna take us 3 minutes. Like how did you form the arguments of this? Did you have ready-made arguments before?
I wrote quite a lot of mock tests for part B. I didn't send it for evaluation. I just wrote by myself and like read it again and see if it is because they've mentioned very clearly that we are not tested on our legal knowledge. Prior legal knowledge is not necessary. All we have to do is write a well structured answer in the limited space and time. It's not even you need to write 250 or 350 words. They have given that 1.5 page boxes. We have to write inside that. No additional sheets will be provided. So I printed that sheet from the sample paper and I started writing in that space which was there in the sample paper. And so I picked the questions from the Law Friends compendium. So I wrote a different versions and checked which is more structured, which will I can do within the time limit and all that, and then I came up with something in my mind. So just went and implemented that.
So to read the question, it's gonna take around 2 minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, and later the next 6 minutes you put into writing.
So around 2-3 minutes to read, and then quickly figure out what stance you're going to take, right? And then once you do that, I started with identifying the core issue. This is the case. This case is about so and so issue, and then once you identify the issue, it naturally starts flowing because you need to give the arguments, right? You will be taking a stance and you need to give for or against or whatever it is to support your stance. So and then finally end with a conclusion. So that is how I structured my answer. So
did you have how many words did you write for each answer? What was the word limit?
I didn't count words per se. I just saw the page. So there's 1.5 page of space. So I just wrote for that. So I think it would be around 200 words. I don't know.
It's around 250, 200 to 250.
200 to 250 words.
Exactly.
So because they didn't mention much about the word limit.
True.
They just said you have to write it in the space provided. And I saw the sample papers and then 1.5 pages is given for one case study. So I just wrote that.
So, like in part B, when you're writing answers, did you just cover the facts? Did you just identify the issue and cover the give with your reasoning the facts that are given in passage? Or did you add any extra fact from the real world, some current affairs?
No.
In part B, normal question, not this.
So also, so in the question paper, there is a line, right? It says that we need to answer the case study based on the information provided in the case study, right? We don't have to quote any external case laws or like even constitution articles. Nothing is needed.
Exactly.
Whatever, and the most important thing is that we need to use that information. There will be a lot of facts scattered here and there across the case studies, probably in the beginning or the end. We need to use all that to answer the support our arguments. We should not just be like, oh, this person is responsible, they have to be like they are not just that.
I get it. So I asked you this question because many students ask this question to me again and again, like should we add any legal fact into it? I repeatedly say there's no need of it, because NLS has made it clear that you don't need any legal knowledge as such for this.
So but then here I need to mention that we need to it's not like completely when I say no legal knowledge is needed. Law Friend had a lot of content about torts, criminal laws, constitutional laws and all that. No, I went through all those lectures and I studied that as well. That was very helpful in developing the language, the vocabulary needed to write these case studies. There won't be direct questions like what is tort, give the history of tort, not like that.
Exactly.
But you need to use like negligence, liability, vicarious liability.
Exactly. These are very basic verbatim.
Yeah.
So
these words which are new to someone like me, I don't have a law background. No, so I studied this and used this vocabulary in my cases. That doesn't mean we need something like court case laws or something.
True.
This is just the basic language we need to build.
Legal knowledge in a very basic sense is an addition, but we need not quote any section, any article.
We don't have to. But we need to use whatever is given in the case study.
Perfect.
That we have to use.
And I have one more question for you. This is an interesting question. So many students, what they do is they pick the side that is very difficult to argue from. Right? So they feel that they'll be a very good advocate. They'll portray to be a very good advocate. The future prospect to the people who are correcting the paper. So I usually suggest that your aim should be to clear the paper, finish the paper first. It's not to prove the other person, the person that's difficult to prove, to be proven right. So it's not. You shouldn't be having your mind into it. So,
as long as you're able to provide cogent arguments and support your stance.
Exactly.
And write it within the limited time and space, then it doesn't matter which side you're picking or anything.
Exactly.
Like,
so,
even if you're picking something very difficult to argue, but you're still able to give those arguments and like all that, then it's well and good.
Like, did you have that tendency? My question is, did you have that tendency to do it as well? Like, pick a difficult side and then prove it?
No, I don't think so. So once I read the case study, I'll immediately come to some kind of conclusion. Okay, I'm going to go with this argument, this line of argument, because I'm able to provide 3-4 reasons to support this. So I can structure my answer quickly, right, without even having to think, spend extra 2-3 minutes to see, okay, I'm going to come up with some new thing. No, it comes naturally. The moment you read the case study, it comes, okay, I'm going to use these facts to make this argument, and that's how I'm going to structure the answer.
Exactly.
So that's how I went.
And for essay, we'll jump into essay now. For essay, what was the word limit that you called? Like, how many pages did you fill? Just let me know 1.5.
Essay was actually a bit of a surprise for me, because in the sample paper, I think they had given 3.5 pages. 3.5 sides. So I also practiced 3.5 sides for essay. But in the actual exam, it was more than that. I think it was some 5 to 6 pages were there.
Okay.
So I wrote about 4 to 5 pages. I didn't fill all the sheets. So because we also have a time constraint, I had less than half an hour for essay. So I quickly read the questions and then since I already wrote a lot of essays for my mains exam, I just used my usual format and then started writing the essay. So and finished the essay, but not. I didn't fill all the pages, but I finished my essay.
Perfect. And like I want to know this, in UPSC when you write answers, you usually incorporate these diagrams and all this other stuff, right?
That is for GS answers.
Yeah.
For essay, it's the usual
you
paragraph format.
Perfect. So, and one more question that I had is in part B when you attempted, it's usually suggested that in the legal questions you shouldn't be writing it in point format. It doesn't look great.
Yeah.
Did you go with it? Did you go with the point format in part B, or like how was it?
I used subheadings.
Okay.
I didn't use points for inside the subheadings. I just wrote it in paragraphs. For me personally, I felt writing in paragraphs saved some time because it gave this natural flow to the answer instead of forcing some bullet points. But I think it is subjective. Some people might find points comfortable. There is no hard and fast rule how to write it. I just preferred giving subheadings and writing in paragraphs.
That's actually a nice way, because it's suggested not to go with the point format for the legal questions. For essay questions, it's still fine. It doesn't really have a big impact on it. But because in legal questions, there's a need for flow. When the person's reading it, they need to be in the flow.
So for case studies, I split the answer into 4 subheadings. The first one is to identify the issue. Then the next 2 sections will be supporting or going against. So for and against. I gave both sides of the answer of the case. And then the final section is a small paragraph for concluding the case study. Right?
So wait, you said for and against both for every question?
No, so let's say you're taking a stance for. Okay, so you will start with that, saying that, okay, I'm supporting this person, these are the reasons why I'm doing that. However, there is also some issues with this. That will be the against one.
Okay.
There are some loophole, lacuna, caveat, whatever is there in the case. So I address that also. And then conclude the case.
So basically, you address the fact that there might be some the against argument to this as well. Not exactly against, but you did address the
some issues which because every case study it's not like you will have like one side argument only.
True. Exactly.
You will also have some issues which might go against your argument, the one which you have selected. I felt it was important that I address that also.
So perfect.
And also give a reason why, in spite of these issues, I still chose the first argument because of these reasons.
Okay. This is something that I need to keep in mind, because this is something that I need to tell people as well. So you did acknowledge that. So that's good.
Yeah.
And for essay, like again skipping back to essay. So for essay, like did you incorporate any factual points, or did you just go with a philosophical approach towards essay?
I mixed both. I picked the 3 language question for essay, and I wrote factual as well as philosophical, as well as historical. Started with the constitutional
social,
debates,
economical, everything.
So I started with how this language issue was there even when we framed the constitution, quoted some constitutional debates, information and all that, and even the current affairs related to it. All that. So, and then I also gave the philosophical point of it, and economic also.
Exactly. So every aspect was covered.
Yeah, because with 3 language there was also a thing about the fiscal federalism and the devolution of funds between center and state.
So did you start with the Andhra Pradesh, like the first state, how it was formed, from there based on language?
Yeah, something like that. So, and also because in the constitutional debates, there was a thing whether Hindi should be the national language. There were certain voices against it, and hence they made it official language for 15 years, which was again renewed. So all that. So briefly, I touched on that. That was not the main part of the essay. I just briefly touched on it.
I want to know one more thing. Like in essays, usually UPSC aspirants are very well trained to be neutral in essay. They won't take either this side or this side. They won't say language is bad or good. So, but other aspirants are not from this UPSC drill, so they usually tend to take one side, and they all give one side. So, like, what was your approach? Did you take both sides, or did you go with neutral approach, or did you go with the extreme approach?
Neutral, neutral, because for essay I started with the issue, addressed the historical point, then started with what is happening right now, but how that's not, that's not only thing happening, right? There are different facets to the story.
True.
So address that also, like so I gave a neutral argument to the essay.
Yeah, this is something that we'll have to tell everyone, that it's usually better to go with neutral approach rather than picking some extreme sides to the question.
So I always make sure that I give different perspectives in the answers, both case studies as well as the essay.
Okay.
I always prefer addressing as many point of views as possible, but it shouldn't be cluttered. I mean, it shouldn't compromise what your opinion is.
True.
So there's always a balance which we need to establish. Like, you need to give your argument, but also at the same time address other points of view also.
Perfect. And coming to the practice for NLSAT, so how many Part B questions did you actually solve to get this kind of speed and this? And when you started, before that, when you started Part B question, did you have any leverage in writing speed? Because you're an UPSC aspirant, you would of course have a leverage in writing speed and stuff. But did it anyway help you in forming arguments and I just want to know, despite how many questions you practiced for Part B, and did UPSC preparation have any leverage for your Part B?
Yeah, so I had the advantage of writing fast, making arguments more quickly in the limited time because of going through the whole mains. I wrote all the GS papers and options and everything. So because of which I had this advantage. But at the same time, writing legal case studies was completely new to me. There's nothing compared to the UPSC answers.
That is
right? So I also had to develop a different kind of language and vocabulary to write legal case studies. And also, when I say legal case studies, the case studies deal with regular everyday cases, not like some constitutional cases, right? Something which we face on an everyday basis, but you need to write it in a legal perspective. So that I took some time to master. I used your the 100 case compendium. I saw all the answers, but the answers in the thing were lengthy, right? When you start writing it, you need to be able to make it concise to fit in that 1.5 page. So I picked up so different ways how to do it. I did trial and error and finally arrived at a structure and just implemented that on the day of exam.
So you practiced around 100 to 200 Part B questions?
No, I didn't practice all the 100.
Okay.
I went through the most of the cases. I might have written about around 5 case studies per day. So roughly around like 30 cases I might have written.
Perfect. Okay.
So like 25 to 30. I don't have the exact number. So essay also I wrote like some 5 essays only, like because essay, I had written a lot of essays.
Exactly. Essay I can understand. You're from UPSC background. It's usually you have the catch up, so that's understandable.
Yeah.
And coming to this, like your Part A score is 60, right?
61.25.
61.25. Okay, so what were the questions that you missed? Because there were hardly around 5 questions, I guess, that you missed, 5 or 6.
Yeah. So there were a few questions. Like for instance, there was this question on cookbook, right? Who's the author of that? I didn't know. All the Nobel laureates were mentioned. I didn't know that. And also the head of the International Olympic Committee, I was not that updated. I picked the 2024 ones, but in I think March 25, Miss Coventry I think was elected. I missed that question also. And likewise there were like.
So basically the major question that you missed were current affairs itself.
Yeah, because I knew that my strong suit is in English comprehension. So I was like, I'm not going to make any mistakes there. So So as much as possible, I wanted to score in the English part. So I knew that current affairs is a bit tricky because we won't know where the questions are coming from. Also, it is mostly based on the passage which is given. So there I might have missed a couple of questions.
Perfect. And for part A, like how many questions, like how many mock tests did you practice? And like I want to know one more. This I was asking you regarding CSAT, right? So, which is, have you tried GMAT papers or CLAT papers for part A?
I went through the GMAT and CLAT, but I didn't use any of it. I just saw whether it will be useful or not. But I prefer to stick with my UPSC sources. So since I already used them for the exam, I didn't want to start something new. I had already 2 months, so I didn't want to start anything new, GMAT or CLAT. I just used CSAT materials.
This is something that is very interesting because 2 years ago, like I had a friend like who got into NLSI 3 years LLB and then he cracked NLSI as well. So even he's told me the same thing. He just because he was from UPSC background, he just practiced CSAT questions and he made it. So that's a bit interesting because usually people in NLSAT circle they recommend students to go with GMAT material.
Okay.
So this is actually great.
Because CSAT has a lot of questions in English comprehension. And this year, whoever attended, I heard that the questions were also lengthy. Like it took a lot of time to read the passages and arrive at the answer. So I have actually in my previous CSAT, I scored above 100. So I don't remember the exact, but my score was 100 plus.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time preparing for CSAT since it has become a little difficult, in the past few years.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time for CSAT, increasing my speed, reading speed and comprehension speed and all, and that really helped in NLSAT.
Perfect. So CSAT level, is it slightly higher than NLSAT, or how is it?
So the passages are lengthy in NLSAT.
Okay.
Like the passages are big in NLSAT, but the questions are not as difficult as CSAT.
Okay. Perfect.
If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I understand.
The options in CSAT can be confusing. Like you might find difficult to arrive at the answer. Like it will be like, is it A or B? Both of it seems to be right.
True.
So, but in NLSAT it was not like that. The answers were quite straightforward for me, at least for me, because I have, I can be biased here because of CSAT preparation.
Yeah, that is true. And so totally for part A, you prepared from previous year questions of NLSAT and CSAT.
So I did all the previous year questions of NLSAT and I joined the Law Friends mock test. I gave, I think, 5 to 6 mocks for part A. So,
Perfect. That's great. And final question for NLSAT. This is an issue that many students faced actually. So this is about the OMR marking. So usually when people in 23, so when paper was given, they didn't have a separate time for OMR marking. I mean, usually in every exam they'll have separate time for OMR marking and later you will be starting the exam. But that time they gave the paper and time was started then itself. So you had to spend 5 to 10 minutes in OMR marking. You have to be very careful writing a name and stuff. Was it the same even this time?
Yeah, we didn't have any extra time, and also this separate time for OMR is something new to me. I haven't heard of it because even in UPSC you don't have separate time for marking.
So I'm talking based on like students who are given NEET and JEE back then. So in 2017-18, so back then we used to have this. We used to have at least 5 minutes. They used to give the OMR early and we had to fill the thing, and later they used to give the question.
So what I personally did is that as and when I solved a question, I marked it on the OMR.
Okay. So you didn't mark all the questions and later mark OMR all?
No, because I personally feel that builds up anxiety in the back of my head.
True.
Oh shit, I haven't filled the answer.
And a single mistake there and it's gonna spoil the entire paper.
Also, you need to see the question number correctly and mark the bubble correctly. So to avoid all that, as and when I see the answer question, I'll just mark the answer there.
So while like practicing during your practice sessions, did you have OMR with you, or did you just practice just like that and directly go to exam and write OMR for the first time?
For NLSAT, I just did the computer-based test, so I didn't have
an exactly. We had CBT.
But I have a lot of experience with OMR with UPSC prelims, so that's how I didn't have issues with OMR because of that.
Perfect. So then it's perfect. Yeah. So
because I took the decision that I'm just going to mark the answer. I'm not going to leave it to the end.
Okay.
Because sometimes you will be caught up with a question and you won't even know that the time is going on. You will just be thinking about the question, finding out the correct option, and it will affect the time to fill the OMR. You might make mistakes in the end in the hurry and all. So I didn't want to go through all that. So I felt it was easy also. It saves time. See question number 1, go to question number 1. 2.
Exactly. That's better actually. Even I would suggest the same.
Yeah.
That's good. So this is about NLSAT. We got to know everything, your preparation strategy for NLSAT. So your materials, the things that you went through and stuff for NLSAT.
Yeah.
So now we'll go into NLU and NIT. That exam you studied, I guess, barely for 1 or 2 weeks, as you mentioned before.
I did the 2 years PYQ, previous year question, and thankfully in that week you guys came up with this brilliant 5 mock tests. That was actually a game changer because I didn't have a separate preparation strategy or anything for NLU. Whatever I did for NLSAT plus the math part, that is the logical ability part of it from CSAT. I just did that. And I also analyzed from the PYQs, okay, what kind of questions, 120 questions will be there, 2 hours, so I need to be quick and all that. I knew that. But mock tests, I didn't do anything until those 5 mocks came. Prepared by students of NLU, I gave those questions of those 5.
Perfect. And for general reasoning in NLU, like how did you counter the general reasoning? Because it doesn't overlap with this in NLSAT. English and GK still it does overlap to an extent, but this doesn't. General reasoning doesn't.
I didn't prepare anything separately. General reasoning, a lot of it from my prelims helped, UPSC prelims helped, plus NLSAT, the extras which I mentioned, about the movies and the sports and books and everything, that helped. I already studied polity and a lot of it, Constitution, Lakshmikant and all. We have studied so many times, so I didn't do anything separately for NLU.
And final thing, like I want to know, like how much time do you, if any NLSAT aspirant is coming to you for suggestion, and he says I need 1 entire year for preparation, like how much time would you suggest them? Do you tell them to go with 1 entire year, or like how many months?
This is subjective, but even then I feel 1 year is a lot.
Exactly.
So yeah, like see, I like I said, I can be biased because I've spent a lot of time with UPSC, but even then I feel 1 year is a lot of time. You have ample time. Probably like 6 months. I don't know, like because once you analyze the previous year questions, you get the hang of the questions. You know what is going to come, or at least what kind of questions are going to come. Then you can channel the preparation accordingly. Instead of just spending 1 year and reading everything under the sun, you can narrow it down and be more focused and do a more smart preparation. That's how I did in 2 months. Like I didn't spend a lot of time for these exams. So yeah, that's what I would suggest. Like analyze the questions, understand what kind of questions are coming. Because in NLSAT Part 8, even the MCQs, 25% I can say, 25% will be current affair based, right? 25 to let's say 40%, I'm not sure exactly. Because a lot of it is passage based. The questions come from the passage, for which you need to improve your comprehension skills.
That is true.
Yeah, out of the 75 questions, I won't say even half of it is current affairs. Like very less is current affairs part. So just pick those questions which is current affairs and see what kind of questions they're asking, and just prepare that.
Okay.
So
That's good. And one more, this is an important question regarding anxiousness. Like many people feel that there are very less seats in NLSAT. Like out of Karnataka non-domicile general, there are hardly around 25 seats, 23 to 25 seats. So did it ever cross your mind while preparing? You just had 2 months to prepare. So did it ever cross your mind?
I saw the category reservations. I saw the domicile. I knew the seat matrix and everything, but I focused on strengthening my preparation because if you're strong in whatever you're doing, if you keep practicing and like improving it, then it doesn't matter, right? Like you will get in. So whatever the matrix is, if you're trying to increase your score, then you have higher chances of getting in. So
Perfect. And like many people, they plan on dropping an entire year and studying solely for NLSAT. After knowing there are hardly 20 seats for like all India category. So like, would you suggest it? Like, what do you recommend regarding that? Should they have any backup
recommend that. Again, this can be very subjective, but I personally wouldn't recommend that. I don't think you should drop a year because 1 year you can do a lot of things. You can, apart from this NLSAT and NLSAT, even if you give 1 or 2 hours per day, it's easy it's more than enough, provided you have a structure and you can take the guidance of Law Friend. And also here I really must talk about the Telegram community which we have here, the self prep group. So which is very helpful. You can that's actually like quite helpful because a lot of anxiety will be there at the beginning because you won't know what we are doing. It feels like we haven't figured out what this is. I can talk now because I got it. So until the results, I was also very anxious, right? I was like, whatever I did it work? Did my strategies work? I didn't know. So that's when the group really helped. So we can like tell, okay, this is what I'm doing. What do you guys think about it? Do you think we should do this? Simple questions like, should we write in bullets? Should we write in paragraphs? You read this newspaper, that one. So that is very helpful. So you can always reach out to the community and
that is true. That's absolutely
help
true.
is there.
And this one more thing. So, where did you write your exam? Was it in NLS or Bangalore?
No, I wrote in Chennai.
Okay. They had a center in Chennai as well.
Dr. Ambedkar School of Excellence.
Perfect. That's great to know. Your entire preparation journey and strategy and everything, because cracking it in 2 months is a very hard feat to achieve. And you have done that, and even NLU, you cracked NLU as well.
NLU I wrote in Bangalore.
Perfect. So that's great. That's actually great. So we hope you have a good legal career, and once you come to Bangalore, you can always contact me because I'll always be here. I'm a local here. I can help you with anything here in Bangalore.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's one thing, and I'll connect you with your seniors. Like some of my friends in 3 year LB and LSIU. So connect with them. And so this is it, guys. This is it for the interview with Aparajita K. And she has scored All India rank 10 in NLSAT and All India rank 16 in NLU Odisha and IIT. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. This video is going to go on YouTube. So and drop your comments and like.
Thank you.
Are you preparing for 3-year LLB entrance exams but feeling overwhelmed and unsure where to start? Do you struggle with finding the right resources, guidance and clarity, all in one place? Tired of institutions selling just mock tests or rebranding old materials meant for other exams and charging a fortune for it? Introducing LawFriend, your one-stop solution for 3-year LLB entrance exams. LawFriend brings you cutting-edge tools to supercharge your preparation. With our exams portal, you can participate in live All India tests and instantly see your rank, giving you real-time insights into your performance. Practice questions on individual topics, sharpen your skills, and get exam ready with confidence. LawFriend, aim to be